In this video, we're going to discuss how to make a histogram using Excel. What you see here right now, gents, is the data table that we already have set up with all of our statistical analysis data completed. The next thing we need to do is actually put this into a visual graphic format to make it easier to understand what's going on. As we start this process, we're going to be making a frequency chart, which indicates how regularly or how frequently each data within each class interval occurs, and then we'll make our histogram. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is to actually establish what our bins are going to be. And again, remember, this is a little bit subjective. We're going to shoot for around 7 bins depending on the data set that you have. You can make it less or more. And we will, in this case, we're just going to use an interval of 0.25 feet for all of the various intervals. So we have to actually write out our bins in our data table. So I'm going to pause this and go ahead and crank those out, and then I'll show them. So over here on the right, I've established my bins. I just labeled them bins, and then I put in all of the bins for the various data ranges that I want. I'm increasing again by 0.25 intervals, so I'm going to have a range of whatever the number is that you see for the bin, that's the center number, and then that 0.25 is going to be either plus or minus on either side. All right, now it's time to actually make our histogram. So we're going to select the data tab from the top of Excel, which is right here in about the middle. All right, and now we're going to look over here under the analysis panel, and you should see data analysis as the choice that you want to use. So there you go. If you don't see your data analysis or even the analysis panel as a choice, you need to go watch the other video on how to do the analysis add-ins, which you'll have to do on any computer that you use outside of the school. Okay, so we're going to choose data analysis, and a dialog box is going to pop up with the various analysis tools. Obviously, we want to do a histogram, so choose histogram, and then click OK. Now it's going to ask you for some input of the range. What data do we want to analyze? So our input range, first off, is going to be the data that we're inputting. And again, we're just going to select using the mouse. So I'm going to highlight all of my data that I want to analyze. Then I'm going to click down here to bin range, and I'm going to highlight the bins that I want to be using as well. I'm going to move the PowerPoint along as well. So we selected our range, we selected our bin, and now the last thing we need to do is we need to select our output range. So this means where we're going to be putting the data, where Excel will be putting the data. So again, we're going to click here, and I'm just going to put it below all of my input data. So I have a cell range, and then lastly, we need to choose output of chart. So we want to have a chart output. Just like that. And now we're going to click OK. And Excel is going to do the work for you. It is going to, excuse me, it's going to make a data frequency table right here on the left, and then it's going to actually create the histogram. Now, at a quick glance, we've got good data here. We can see what it means, but if you look more carefully at our data, our histogram, it just has the title histogram, and the bins along the bottom are running into each other, so it's really hard to tell how big each one of these bins is. So we're going to make some just aesthetic changes to make this a more usable type of chart. So here's our results, and it should look very similar to what we have. There's our frequency table, and then here's our histogram itself. So let's go ahead and start out first off with making our data labels across the bottom, our bin labels, a little bit more useful. So what we're going to do is we are just going to double click on that bar of numbers. And depending upon what version of Excel you're using, you're either going to get a box that pops up on the side like it did here on my screen, or a dialog box is going to pop up over top of your screen. All the same information is available, it's just the placement of where it is located. So if you have a newer version of Excel, you're going to get this Format Axis dialog box that's going to pop up on the side, and we need to choose this second icon, the one that's got the square with the arrows pointing in all 4 directions for size and properties. And that's going to take us to our alignment option. So it's asking us how we want our alignment of our data. So we can change, we want it to be horizontal, we want it to be vertical, we want it to be upside down. You can have it stacked so it reads like that, but you can't really see it. So what we're going to do for right now is leave it at horizontal, and we're actually going to change the angle. This is what TW wants us to do. They want us to change it to a negative 60-degree angle. So you can just type that in, and what that's going to do, and you can see Excel is changing it as we type it in, is it just changes the text to be on an angle so that you can actually read what each bin is showing us. So we've done all of that. We've changed it to a 60-degree angle. It looks much better, and we are done with that one. The next thing that it wants us to do is to change our axis on the side so that we have decimal increments. So from here, we are just going to click on the frequency range until it's highlighted. And then across the top, we need to choose this particular one, which is axis items. And we're going to be changing our units. We want to change our major unit to 0.5 instead of 1. So our major units, we're just going to overwrite and make that 0.5. And if we click off of that onto another box, you can see that it changed it to 0.5. The next thing we want to do is we want to change the title from histogram to something a little bit more useful. So we're just going to double click on it, and you can overtype. Whoops, let me try spelling that right. Overtype the title. And we can also change axis labels if you want to. Bin is not a very good axis label, so we want to change that one to read heights in feet. Just making it a more usable histogram. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to add grid lines. So we can go ahead and close this formatting box off on the side here. Now again, depending on which version of Excel you have, this might be a little bit different, but we are going to choose on the upper left hand side of the Design tab. It's called Add Chart Element, and we're going to choose grid lines, and they want us to choose primary, major, horizontal. And as you notice, it puts these grid lines that run across. It just helps make it more visually appealing and easier to read. So we've added our grid lines. It looks nicer. And then finally, we want to reduce the gaps between our individual bars. So we're going to double click on a bar. There we go. And right here, we've got gap width of 150%. That's way too big. We're going to change it down to 5. And if you want to do some other things, like say, I don't like blue, let's change it to green. We can change the colors. That's the fill color. You can also change the border. So let's give it a solid line of, let's make it really obnoxious, red, so you can see that there is a change to that. So you're able to really tweak the graph a lot to have it do exactly what you want it, have it look exactly how you would like it. All right, guys. So that is it on how to make a histogram. Practice, practice, and let me know if you have any questions.